with this. Angela, let's start with you. Do you think that, there's a real moral justification for this, or can you see that for some women this is going to really be devastating?
I appreciate the question because I'd say yes, there is very much a moral discussion that needs to occur and a moral justification, because we believe that every human being, and we know that an unborn child is a human being, has rights, and those rights need to be protected, which means that we need to protect the rights of the mother and the child.
But when you go down the route of an unborn thing being a human being, at what point do you stop? I mean, do you go full Catholic when it comes to contraception and things like that? And surely if there is a woman out there who cannot give that child a decent life, whose child might have been created out of a horrific, violent crime, who might be medically affected when it comes to seeing through the birth of their child, surely at some point that must take precedent.
Well, I would say that the argument here is no longer about if it's a child. We know from science that from the moment of conception, that's a brand new human being, full DNA, full chromosomes, full blueprint. They have never existed before. They will never exist again. And even the justices who wrote the dissent said that you couldn't force a woman to give birth to a child. So they recognize that it's a child as well. So if we get on this slippery slope of deciding that one group's rights are more important than another, that's a very frightening place to be.
Going to you, Jenny Holland, I mean, for a lot of women out there, America must be a very frightening place to be, because it seems at one side it's a highly sexualized society, and at the other, if you end up on the wrong side of that, then you're stuck. You don't have any choice about what to do with your future of you or your unborn child.
Yeah, there's something to that. I think America is undergoing some kind of decades-long moral and social crisis that just seems to get worse with each passing year. I mean, I am pro-choice. I have always been pro-choice. However, I am not mourning the demise of Roe v. Wade for a multitude of reasons. One of them being that it does not ban abortion wholesale. It simply puts the matter back to each state legislature to decide. In practice, that does mean that quite a few states will be banning abortion imminently, but if that reflects the will of the people, then so be it. And likewise, a lot of states have done the opposite, and they will enshrine the right of a woman to choose in their state legislatures. I find that to be a more acceptable position politically and morally, democratically, than having the judges decide from on high, even if it was a ruling that I so-called agreed with. But I think also, to me, there's something else that's very important here, and that is that the pro-choice movement in the United States has become unmoored from reality, and I think that they deserve this defeat, quite frankly.
But when you talk about, there are states that will ban abortion, some states won't, does that not potentially put abortion in the hands of those who can afford to travel? At the end of the day, getting from the middle of, Southern American states to somewhere that might legalize or maintain abortion as legal is a bit like flying across Europe. It's not necessarily quick or cheap.
Well, it's not. Unfortunately, this is the reality that many women and young women especially will face. And I'm not afraid to say that I was once in that position when I was a university student living in the Republic of Ireland, where abortion was illegal at the time, and I traveled to England to terminate an unwanted and accidental pregnancy. I was a university student. I had no means. I still figured it out. I don't mean to sound callous, but I think that if you want to maintain a sensible, common sense, humane policy for all parties involved, you have to reject what is passing for the feminist movement and the pro-choice movement today. I'm sorry, but choosing late-term abortion as the hill to die on, which is what brought this case about, which is why Roe v. Wade has been overturned, because the abortion clinic in Mississippi decided that it would fight back against a 15-week abortion ban, which also had exceptions for the health of the mother. I think that if that's your path you're going to take, you are really opening yourself up to ultimate destruction in terms of your moral high ground. You don't have a leg to stand on. You also don't have a leg to stand on because we just watched a few months ago the new Supreme Court justice pretend she couldn't define what a woman was because she is not a, quote, biologist. So really, the progressive left needs to really seriously reassess itself, and I'm sure it will not, because I think it's too ideologically deranged at this point to even admit its own mistakes and overreaches. But really, I mean, whilst there are going to be some young women who will lose out in certain states, a lot of those states it was already very hard to obtain an abortion. So I don't think that's going to be the main problem. The main problem here is the United States has completely lost sight of any common sense discourse over what is a morally acceptable way to terminate a pregnancy. And that does exist. That does exist. A woman's right to self-determination must include a right to terminate a pregnancy up until a certain point, but it is not 15 weeks, and it is not for any old reason, and it is not to be celebrated. We really have to be mature, wise women and take control of the discourse back.
I mean, Angela, Jenny makes some interesting points there about what socially is happening in America. And it seems to me that it's polarizing into two very extreme camps, with the extreme liberal left in one point throwing decades of women's rights in the bin over trans rights and things like that, in a hypersexualized society. And then at one end, making decisions to stop abortion being legal in a lot of states, which has shocked a lot of the Western world, who find that pretty anachronistic. What is going on, do you think, with America?
I would say that public opinion should never drive constitutional law and human rights. And of course, I was grateful that the Supreme Court said that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion and did put it back to the states and to the people. That's what we were founded on. And you will see different states make different decisions. And they did this for this decision because the stakes are so high. We are talking about life and death. We're not talking about something like the right to vote or the right to own property. We are talking about a human being and their ability to be born, even if their mother doesn't want them.